Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is a special PD session which has been put on for New South Wales, ACT, Queensland and Northern Territory HBDI practitioners. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us. My husband's line to all his friends at the moment is, how are you going in the apocalypse? It is certainly an interesting time to be a training facilitator and a coach. Something that often relies on our fabulous abilities with face-to-face. And yes, we're face-to-face now, but we're all learning a lot about being virtually face-to-face. I want to just remind you what's on first. So I don't know if you know that we also, Michael Morgan, our CEO, who you can see there, runs a session for you guys, any practitioner who would like to join in, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. So we'll follow this, this session up with an email with a reminder of a link that you can use to join that session. That's not one you register for, it's very casual, only if you can make it, 10 a.m. every Wednesday, but lots of practical tips and tricks and themes. Last week's one, or this week's one, was on storytelling. People go into breakout rooms, do some work together, come back with insights. So it's a really useful session and we get to all see each other like we're all seeing each other today. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Jim. So the other thing that's on, and I can see Brett White is here, is we have a webinar on Thursday next week, the 7th of May at 10 a.m. And that's a public webinar that anyone can join. You don't have to be a practitioner. We actually have about 250 people signed up to join. And Brett's talking about his experience as assistant coach at the Canberra Raiders and using whole brain thinking in the context of strategy. And a big aim of the Raiders was to increase their, improve their defence stats. So that will be a really fantastic session. I can't wait. Now, Michael Morgan will be running this session today, and he's going to go over, basically it's two things. So the first one is going through the big picture of virtual facilitation, how to use, you know, what tips and tricks that we've learned over the last couple of years, and particularly in the last few weeks, about virtual delivery. And also he'll be covering design elements, what facilitators should and shouldn't do, and some features of, you know, Zoom, which is a platform that we're using a lot. But he'll also then go into some of our digital products, how to find resources to do with our digital products, and he'll do a quick walkthrough of a couple of, so the HBDI digital profile and the HBDI app. So thank you, and over to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Yeah, and again, welcome everybody. And let me start, I guess, by asking you all a question. Who remembers the days of face-to-face workshops? I mean, yeah, it's what I spent my life doing last year, and I look forward, distant memory, that's right. I look forward to doing them this year. And in fact, I think Linda had teed up 3 or 4 for me to do in, you know, February, early March, and suddenly, poof, you know, it just went. I mean, not only a distant memory, it's, you know, it's something, yeah, from the past. So yeah, we are in a different world. So, as Linda said, I want to talk about a number of things. What I want to do, first of all, is hopefully share my screen. I want to talk about ILT, VILT, and what I call SILT, just so we're kind of clear on the terminology and what we're going to be talking about. ILT, as you can see, is instructor-led training. And that's what I call good old-fashioned, you know, face-to-face training. That's what we used to do. VILT is what I'm going to talk about today, is virtual instructor-led training. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Then there's what I've called sort of, you know, SILT, self-led training. Now, just to get the definitions right, obviously we know about instructor-led training. That's all the old face-to-face stuff in the classroom we used to do. By self-led training, what I'm putting in there is where there isn't an instructor, where you sit in front of the computer, you know, and you log on to an online training program, and it, you know, religiously walks you through the different steps and everything else. Right? Now, that probably needs a webinar all of its own, and we're not going to talk about that today. So you can kind of put that to the side. What I want to talk about is the one in the middle, which is virtual instructor-led training. And these are the topics I want to cover today. First of all, VILT. You know, what is it? What are some of the things I do? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What are some of the things the platform can do, whatever the platform is? And then, as Linda mentioned, some design considerations. In particular, how can we use, you know, the whole brain model to do that? So that's a big chunk of what we'll talk about today. Then I want to look at, you know, some of the online stuff that we've got. From a practitioner point of view, we'll talk about Axon and the portal. And then I want to talk about this thing called the Thinker portal, right? And, you know, and what's in that. So that's where we're going today. Now, just before we do, I guess, let's just talk about, I guess, the technology and the platform. There are 1,000,001 platforms out there. We happen, and you might have seen, you logged onto a thing called Ring Central, which is actually wrapped around, or it's a rebranded Zoom. Ring Central includes our telephones and mobiles and all sorts of things. But basically, for those of you that are familiar with Zoom, you know, this is Zoom. We also use Adobe Connect, which we like for, I guess, more in-depth learning, and our research program is done on Adobe Connect. But I think there are others. I discovered the other day Blue Jeans. I thought I wore them, but that's a platform. There's GoTo Training. There's obviously Microsoft Teams. And it was interesting the other day, I did a virtual debrief with a lady in Hong Kong. And so I set up Ring Central and Zoom and everything else. And of course, she said, no, we can't do that because of all the firewalls and everything else. I will have to send you a link. So she sent me a link, and it turned out to be WebEx, which I hadn't really worked with before, but it's pretty similar to Zoom. But it did make it interesting because I'd geared up the session. So I would drive it. I had all the overheads. I had my Digital HBDI and hers all ready to go. And of course, it turned the session on its head because I couldn't share my screen with her because of firewalls and everything. So she had to, you know, share hers and her HBDI, but it still worked. It worked pretty well. So I guess just the first point I want to say is, you know, you've just got to go away and get familiar with all these technologies. I think they seem to have about 80%, you know, in common with each other. They all have similar features, but they all have a little difference. The one word of warning I would say, though, which I didn't do with this client, was actually talk to her beforehand about firewalls and so forth. And it would have been too easy to do, you know. And so if you're going to work with a group, obviously, you know, talk to whoever it is in the company, you know, and sort that out beforehand. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Okay, let me share my screen again. And the first thing I want to do, I guess, is, again, regardless of the platform, these are some of the things that I've found have worked for me when it comes to running virtual instructor-led training, which is as near as we can get to face-to-face training. All right? I want to talk about the third dimension. I want to talk about being yourself, own the space, make it personal, leave nothing to chance, and the fact that something, say, will go wrong. Because those are the things, you know, that I've learned. Now, the first thing I've learned is the third dimension. And to me, this is the big one. We've all done face-to-face training, isn't it? And you can walk into a room, it's full of people. You can do things, and we're getting lots of questions, obviously, about virtual diversity and the virtual brain mat. Why? Because those are three-dimensional activities where you get people involved and so forth. The problem with this medium is it's two-dimensional, isn't it? We're just all looking at a flat screen. So to me, the first thing you've got to do is bring in the third dimension, you know, and how on earth can you do that? Well, one way, you know, is to get everybody to have something their end. Brett's got his coffee cup and so forth. I've run sessions with dogs and cats and budgerigars and all sorts of things. Linda was saying the other day, there's a good activity of, you know, sending everybody into the kitchen to go and get a utensil and come back out with it and talk about it. We have, you know, I mean, obviously I got more bears than you have at a picnic. I've got brains and all sorts of things. I attended a webinar the other day where the guy used a good old-fashioned bit of paper, and he did a bit of simple origami where, you know, he made us fold it up, you know, and then he made us, we had to tear bits out of it. We had to, write things on it, and then we had to, open things up and look through it. And it was an interesting exercise. But in terms of running virtual instructor lead training, yeah, be creative, go online, look up, school kids activities or whatever else, and, get that extra dimension. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just sitting there, drifting and so forth. So that to me was the first thing. Now, the second point on that list was be yourself, be authentic. A couple of weeks ago, when all of this first started, and they came along and locked me down and, put a chain around the door and said, you can't leave the house, I thought, what do I do? So I attended a Zoom webinar. And technically, it was really good. But from an instructor point of view, it was depressing. The lady just sat there in the top corner of the screen, and read the script, obviously, and the slides, and nothing of her, came through. I'm a great believer in that this medium is exactly the same as face-to-face, but you've got to work harder. You've got to get yourself to project somehow through that screen out to the other person. Don't just talk through slides. The first couple I did, they were all slides. Now what I do, is, and I'll do quite a few things, but one thing is I, whip in and out and, do that sort of thing and move around to give it energy, to give it authenticity and so forth. Now, the third point I raised was, here we go again, own the space. All right? And this was really funny with the lady from Zoom. Now, she might be strong in the blue quadrant, and technically she might be right. But she said, when running a Zoom session, a webinar, or anything else, don't move. Because she said, movement takes up pixels, that takes up bandwidth, that slows everything down, and you'll then get that sign across the screen saying the internet is unstable, and then you might drop out. I don't know about you lot, but I couldn't keep still if my life depended upon it. And, you know I go out of camera and everything else, but, you know, in the good old days of face-to-face, I remember, you know, when I was on the stage or whatever, and somebody would say, we're videoing this, and I say, well, that's terrific, but I'm not going to stand in one spot. You know, I need to walk around. So again, I would say, you know, own the space and, yeah, move around, you know, and if it drops out, you know, so be it. So that's, I guess, the next thing. Now, the next point, and some of you I know already know this, and it's a really, really great one, is make it personal. And it really doesn't matter how many people you get, you know, on the screen. As Linda did, when you began to come on and the faces appeared, what did she do? She said, hi, Brian, hi, Kelly, Liz, there, Ken, you know. And I think you've got to do more and more of that. And you can make it personal as well. Like, I don't know, one of the screens I can see is Jersey. Now, not only do we know Jersey, but you can see that it's Jersey and the Hunter Val, which I presume is Val E. So refer to that. Now, when you're doing a webinar, you know, who knows, you might have, I don't know, if you're lucky, you know, 10 people, but you might get 100 people, you might get 200 people. It's more challenging to be personal. I did a webinar last night, I'll tell you a bit more about it in a minute, into Pakistan, and I didn't know who was there, I couldn't see anybody, I didn't know how many people, and it was difficult for me to be personal, and I found that, you know, challenging, I guess, for me. But when you're doing a virtual instructor-led workshop, especially around whole brain thinking and the HBDI, how many people are you going to have? 5, 8, 10, 15. So you can be more than personal. So you can be, you know, yeah, intimate. So, you know, that's the go there. And we'll look at Zoom in a minute and show and talk about how you can do that. The next point on the list is leave nothing to chance. Now, most of you know my profile, I'm a 3311. People often think I leave everything to chance, but I actually don't. Now, I might prepare in a different way to a 1133, right? But I still prepare. You know, I still try and work it all out. And in fact, this morning when Chris arrived, he looked at me and he said, you look a bit stressed. And I said, I am. Because, you know, I didn't quite feel as in control, you know, as I should be. And I actually find with this medium, you know, I am planning a lot because of the last point. And the last point, let me show it to you, just so we can, is something will go wrong. Now, in the good old days of face-to-face, things always went wrong, didn't they? Somebody didn't turn up, the projector bulb broke, you couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work, the microphone wouldn't work, and we just, you know, you just rolled with that. That was part of the gig. You know, I've even run workshops where, you know, the materials don't turn up and so forth. So it's exactly the same with this, is something will go wrong. Now, last night, say I was scheduled to do a webinar with this guy Farhad from Karachi into Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and we were due to kick off at 7 p.m. So, you know, I got organised at home, had an early dinner, got everything else and so forth, and at 6:30, half an hour before, plenty of time, all right, I got online with the link that Farhad had sent me, and sure enough, up came his face. And he suddenly said, "Ah, here's Michael. I'm glad he's able to join the webinar. Over to you." And the webinar had started not at 7 p.m, but at 6 p.m. And I wasn't half an hour early, I was half an hour late. And again, I had no idea what he'd said. He just said, you know, "You're on slide 4. I had no idea who was there, you know, or anything. And, you know, I was lost for words for, you know, a few seconds, but yeah, you've just got to do it. So that's what I've, say, learned, you know, is the third dimension: own the space, animate, move around, make it loud, make it fun, personalize it, and be prepared, you know, invite a bear, and if something goes wrong. Now again, in terms of if something goes wrong, as Linda said this morning, what I'm finding and what she's finding is it actually doesn't matter if it goes wrong. We've found that people have been remarkably forgiving in this new world. I think there's a greater level of empathy, of understanding, of humanity, and if we don't quite get it right, you know, what the heck. Okay, so that's, I guess, some of what I guess I do and the things I've learned. Now, let me talk quickly about some of the things that the platform can do. And where are we? Now, we've got about 60 people on, and I'm sure you all know one of the first things you can use, right, is, I guess, your picture. Now, if you wave your mouse over the picture, you'll get a little blue sign. It'll say unmuted or muted or whatever, and then 3 dots. And if you go to the 3 dots and go down to rename, right, you can rename yourself. So pick a name.
May I just interrupt here too and say that there are lots of people on who have only used their first name or a nickname. And so for us, we don't get all of your visuals. So it'd be awesome if you could just put your full name just for this session so that we can make sure we know who's here and who has experienced this PD.
Okay. So as Linda said, that'd be really helpful. The other thing is you can ask people like Jersey had done, so I've just done it, Michael in Sydney. And that's really good because then you can quickly look through and say, Jersey's in the Hunter, what's the valley like? Or have you had a good glass of wine? Or, you know, it's another way of personalizing it. What I often do is change mine and go whoops, forgotten it, 3311. No, put your profile there. Or as Linda says, you know, the names or whatever else. So it's just a very simple way of having fun, you know, customizing it, making it a little bit, you know, a little bit different. I was on a workshop the other day on a webinar, and they asked us to do this. So, you know, I put Michael in Bayview, and I looked down the screen, and there was another guy who had put Todd in Bayview. And I said, "Gee, are you really in Bayview?" And so we had a bit of a chat. The funny thing was, 2 days later, when I walked out the back gate of my house, who did I run into? There he was. So, you know, great, yeah, a great example, a great synergy. Obviously, use the chat, and we've already got quite a few people using the chat. As Kath said, distant memory about, you know, face-to-face. Chris has given me a couple of hints about what I should do in presentation mode. So it's it's really, you know, it's really good to use the chat, and or a webinar I was in last night used Q&A, questions and answers. So there are different features there that you can bring in, and we're going to use the chat in a minute. Now, one of the features we're beginning to play around with is, and I will now go into presentation mode as he's told me to do, is obviously when you're running not so much a Herman workshop, but say a meeting with people who've done their HBDI, then it's simple enough to get people to share their HBDIs like this. And this is obviously just in a PowerPoint. One of the other things that I know we all like as HBDI instructors, as practitioners, is the preference map. And I can't think of a workshop or a session or a meeting where I haven't used the preference map. Now, one of the things that I'm working on is the annotate feature. All right? Now, hopefully, if you go on your screen up to the top, you should be able to click and get this menu, right? And down the bottom it should annotate, and I can see that some of you already are. So what I was thinking we could do, and this is going to end up to be an absolute mess, but it doesn't matter, is there's my circle for where I sit on the preference map. So if you work out how to annotate, do have a go at, yeah, that's it. And let's see what we can begin. So we're getting a few arrows. So again, as I say, we're trying to fine tune. All right, with the big circle. We're trying to fine tune this, to work out, I guess, a better way to do it. But you can obviously see, with a small group, you get people to do this, and then you say, okay, Mary, tell me about, your profile, and, what do you think about this? And it's just another way, that we used to do in the classroom, which we're now beginning to, to do here. Okay, so, oops. I can't, hang on.
Michael, while you're switching screens,
Yep.
I have been very lax and not mentioned a big hello to the New Zealanders on the line. And Lisa is here, Lisa Nixon. I'm not sure Nafisa's here, but I know Lisa's here. Lisa, would you like to say hi to your New Zealand practitioners? Anyway, hi everybody. Great to see you on the line, and we look forward to spending more time with you guys on these webinars because they are for the whole region. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Linda. Okay, let me, I guess, so those are some of the things that the platform, I guess, can do. There's the whiteboard, and there are a few other things. And again, in terms of time, I'll leave it there. But you can begin to see that you can actually do, some really great things. And if all else fails, as I say, back to the bit of paper. All right, let me just talk briefly about design considerations, because I think, as we all know, one of the best applications of whole brain thinking is around teaching and learning. Right? And it's probably more important, I think, when we go online than it actually is, face to face, because of the restrictions of, the medium, the virtual nature of it, and so on. So this is obviously the familiar framework, know, when you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to have to design a session, is I now start very much in the yellow. Why am I doing this particular session? What's the big picture? What's the outcome? What's the takeaway? Where am I trying to get to? Is the most, I think, or the starting question. The next question I go to, obviously, is what? What is the content? What's the information I need to include? Because you can't include everything. So what are the key bits and so forth? Then, obviously, who have I got? Who's the audience? Where are they? Not so much where are they physically, I guess, but where are they mentally? Where are they, you know, in terms of the topic I'm talking about? Are they beginners? Do they really understand it? And so forth. And given all of that, I then go into the how. Okay, how am I going to do this with this medium? You know, what's going to work? What isn't work? What are the techniques? And so forth. Do I need to send something out beforehand or after or whatever? So I just drop that in, as I say, as a reminder of, you know, design considerations. And in the practitioner portal, we've got obviously quite a few think abouts on different aspects. And this is one on instructional strategies. And I just found this is a good, you know, reminder of what the different quadrants need or appreciate, you know, when it comes to, say, to learning in particular, you know, online learning, pardon me, and in virtual, what we call instructor-led learning. Okay. There we go. All right. I've done enough talking for a while. One of the, we're going to, and I know a lot of you have done this already, but, you know, we'll do it anyway. One of the best features, or a very powerful feature that you can use in terms of online learning, is the breakout room. It's exactly the same, isn't it? Where face-to-face you'd say, okay, get into small groups for 10 minutes and talk about X, and then come back and report about it. So it's exactly the same, except this is obviously it's done virtually. And this is where Chris, the mastermind behind, and I guess I should have mentioned that it's really good to have, you know, somebody who understands the technology a bit better, you know, in the background, just in case something does go wrong, and they can now weave their magic. So Chris has worked out either scientifically, you can do it obviously on HBDI profiles or whatever. I think we're going to do it just at random, and you'll find yourself in a smaller group of 5 or 6 people, and we'll just do it for about 5 minutes to give those of you who it's new to a feel. And the topic is quickly share any tips or tricks you've got about virtual instructor led training. What's worked, what hasn't worked, okay? And I will see you in 5 minutes. So Chris will hit the big red button now, and you should begin to disappear. Welcome back. Couple of things, I guess, during that. If you went, then you've had a very quick experience, you know, of the breakout room. And what I often do is assign somebody, you know, to be a spokesperson. And so we get the spokesperson to report back. You can do that verbally, or of course you can use the chat. So you can do all of that to get the feedback back. We also, though, had a few people in that exercise who didn't go anywhere. So they remained in the conference room. And you've had that before, haven't you, when you send everybody out, but 3 people stay for whatever reason. Generally in this, they stay for a technical reason. And what we're finding is that if people join these sessions on their phone, they often get stuck on their phone. And it's a technical thing that, you know, for some reason they can't go into a breakout room. We had Leonie who, because of her company firewall, the way she was accessing today's webinar, it wouldn't release her into the breakout room. So, and there we saw there were quite a few other people, I think there were half a dozen who didn't go anywhere, right, for whatever reason. So again, you know, that's the reason why you've got to be prepared. You've got to chat to the IT people. You've got to see what happens, because, yeah, it's, you know, it's tricky. What made it a bit more tricky for us then was that not only did we see that there were 6 people who weren't going anywhere, but we couldn't hear them because their microphones were muted and we could only unmute one, but also they didn't, or they either didn't have their cameras on, but all we saw was the black square. And so it was almost impossible to troubleshoot, you know, that. Chris tried, but, you know. So to me, that's an example of, you know, the type of problems you have. All right, let's now move on, and what I want to do now is put whole brain thinking in the HBDI into a virtual instructor-led workshop. Now, 6 weeks ago when this started and we all got locked down and everything else, there was one particular client who had a face-to-face, real in a classroom workshop for about 12 people, and she couldn't do it. So she asked us to put all their HBDIs, not in one box and send it to her, but in 12 post-it packs and send it to the 12 individuals. And she then ran a virtual instructor-led workshop where she said to everybody, pull out your HBDI pack, open it up, take out the workbook, and look at page 1. So the first way to run a virtual instructor-led workshop is to use the technology to allow you to run a very low-tech, hands-on, paper-based workshop for 5, 10, 20 people. Why not? It's really easy, you know, and it works. Now, if you choose to do that, you can use all the overheads that, you know, you can get from the portal, you know, on Start Thinking or whatever else, and share your screen. You can share yours, and away you go. So that's the first way, is forget kind of technology and do a good old-fashioned paper-based one and say, and we can, you know, we can send them out to you. That's easy. End of last year, when I first met this guy, Farhad from Pakistan, he had a group of UNESCO coordinators and he wanted to run an HBDI session. He wasn't certified, so he asked me to do it. So I sat at home and did it. And I sent 21 of these up to Pakistan. And of course, they never arrived. So the second way you can do it is, and what we ended up doing was, I printed out, you know, all their profiles, and we sent these up as a PDF about an hour before the session. He printed them on the hotel printer, and he went into the room. I was beamed in on the screen, and he handed these out to everybody, and away we went. So that's another way of doing it. If postage is a problem, you know, if you want to go, you know, sort of, yeah, semi-virtual. All right. Now, the third way, obviously, is to use HBDI Digital. All right. Now, I know a lot of you are familiar with HBDI Digital and been having a look at it, and perhaps others not so. Now, what I want to do today is I'm not going to go into HBDI Digital in a huge amount of depth, because you can do that at your own time. And or you can then phone me up or Linda up, whoever it is, and we can take you through it, as I say, in a lot more detail. What I want to make sure today is you know what it is, you know where to go, and you know where the resources are, so you can create a virtual instructor-led HBDI debrief, because that's the most important thing, because there's an awful lot of stuff. Now, to do this, I'm going to hopefully share my screen, and I'm going to share. Okay. Now, this is the, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. The Herman Practitioner Portal. And I've got to jump back the screen. Okay, so here's the Herman Practitioner Portal, and each one of you should have access to the portal already. And when you have access, you should be able to come down to all these, what we call tiles, that you can click on. You can order HBDIs, their resources, stores, events, etc., etc. And the one I want to focus on today, which is the important one today, is the digital whole brain thinking, this bottom right-hand tile. And if you click on there, you'll find you come to this page. Now, it explains two things which are so right for lockdown and the new normal. One is digital solutions for thinkers, and the other is, on the right-hand side, digital solutions for practitioners. So let me just talk briefly about digital solutions for practitioners, because there are two of them. One is Axon, and one down here is the practitioner portal. And that's where we are now. We are in the practitioner portal looking at the digital resources. Okay, so you're familiar down here with the practitioner portal. It's got lots of resources that we'll look at on demand, products and videos. It's where you can get your HBDIs, processed through us, pay invoices, get help, all sorts of things. So, hopefully you're very familiar with that. If not, you're locked at home, so now is a good time, say, to explore the portal more. Axon. For those of you not so familiar with Axon, Axon is what we call the Herman platform, and it's getting more and more, I guess, the place to go. So as it says here, it's the web-based application that empowers certified practitioners to control all aspects of the HBDI and e-learning. So again, you need to be on top of Axon. If you are, go in, find out more. If you're not, then get in contact with me, with Chris, with Linda, with Lauren, and we will tell you a lot more about Axon. Okay, let me just go back a screen. Back to the practitioner forum. So digital whole brain thinking, we just went to the first page in there, and it gives you a lot of information, right, about HBDI Digital. The other place I want to show you is the Resources tab. And if you click on there, you then get a page which has got all these resources. And all you need to do is go there and type in digital, right? And it comes up and says, I found 8 resources. All right, now, let me show you what these 8 resources are, because hopefully they will answer almost every question you've got. There's a template here, as it says, debrief digital planning template. So, oh dear, I've got to debrief some people digitally next week. What do I need to do? That'll help you get ready. If the next 2 are marketing flyers, one specifically about HBDI Digital, the other one about the Thinker portal, which we'll have a look at in a minute. and HBDI Digital in the app. So again, if you want to interest a client in these, download those. There's a handout here. You can use an in-depth review of a digital debrief. So that's something you can use afterwards. Now, the last 4 are the ones you need to get to know. The red booklet, it's got about 20 pages in it, is a step-by-step guide on how to debrief an HBDI digital profile. It tells you exactly what to say and do for each of the many screens in HBDI Digital. So go get that. This one, which is green, it's called the Manual Debriefing HBDI Digital, contains a lot about debriefing the HBDI, the red one, but it also contains a lot of pre and post technical stuff about how to set it up, what to do, how to send out web links and everything else. So again, before you, before you ask the technical questions, they're probably answered in there. Now, the last 2 are really important. The last 2 are slide sets. The first one is a slide set with all the guides written in it on how to debrief HBDI Digital for thinkers, mainly one-on-one. So if you want to share your screen with a whole lot of PowerPoints, then that's the one to download. The last one is slides and guides for virtual start thinking. It doesn't contain diversity. It doesn't contain a pack of cards, but it does contain alternative exercises on how to teach the whole brain model and then how to debrief using HBDI Digital. Because we've been getting a lot of questions, how do I run a 90-minute session, around start thinking and HBDI Digital? That is how to do it. Okay? So those are really important resources, and they are all contained in the practitioner portal. Also in the portal is a lot more information in this section, right, on how to use HBDI, say, digital. So please go there, and have a look. Now, the last thing I want to show you today is what I said here. So we go to digital, is digital solutions for the thinkers. And there are 2 things. There's the Thinker portal that we're going to have a look at in a minute, and then there's the app, which we're familiar with, but we'll also have another quick look at. So what I want to do now, if I can, is go to the Thinker portal. Now, the Thinker portal, as you can see, top left, is where your HBDI digital results reside. Now, for a lot of you, the Thinker portal might be new. And I'm going to give you a little taste, I guess, of some new stuff that is coming in the next 2 or 3 months. Again, lockdown, COVID-19, our trip into the digital reality came a little bit quicker and faster than we'd hoped. So we are fast tracking a huge amount of stuff as quickly as we can, but it is not all here yet. All right? But the Thinker portal is going to be where a lot of it resides. Now, when you use HBDI Digital, you already send your participants here, and the bit of their Thinker portal that will be lit up is HBDI Digital results. All right? What is lit up on this screen, which will, say, be coming in, I'm not going to give you a time because then you'll stick to it, but you know, in the next couple of months is a thing called the Journey and some video libraries. We're going to be putting some additional e-learning resources in here for you to use with your thinkers. So stay tuned. One thing that is available already is the red section of the booklet, and it's here, called your preference code search. And if you click in there, you get all the information you get in the red section of the booklet. All right? So that's already there. What I want to do today, because of time, is go back to my HBDI digital results. Because when you use HBDI digital with yourself or one-on-one or whatever, this replaces the traditional 2 pages that we're used to. Now, this contains the same, if not more, information than the booklet. It just does it in a slightly different way. So if you haven't explored your HBDI digital, please do that. And if you don't know how to do that, the best thing to do is shoot us an email, get on the phone, and we will fix that up and walk you through it. All right? What I want to do is just show you how it works so you can go away and explore it, because it's magic. Now, the first thing is, if you look at my screen, you can see the black arrow as I'm moving around. And we're all familiar with this. When the arrow turns into a hand, it means you can turn the page. So I can turn the page there and there and there and there and there. So if I click on the whole brain model, here's a page explaining the whole brain model. But my hand, so there's not another page there. If I go to my HBDI profile, again, you can see lots of writing, lots of numbers, everything we're familiar with. And down the bottom, so I click on there and there's more information, right, about, in this particular case, it's my profile. And then I can go back. And so on. The least preferred, so now, nothing there, nothing there. Oh, hang on. So there's more information on my least preferred. Return to main screen. On my most preferred. So you can now see that as a practitioner, you can lead the discussion and you can tell individuals now to go to their profile, to go to their least preferred, right? And then you can leave them alone for a couple of minutes whilst they explore a bit more. And then you can say, let's move to the under pressure profile. You can then explain a little bit more about it. And then you can get them to click here and explain it. It then gives them their personalized information, right, about under pressure, back to my full, right, and back to my most preferred, and then back here. So this is what I said. One thing about going virtual is be prepared. All right? So spend the weekend doing this. Now there's some really good stuff. They've added, as you can see, to the mode stuff where it's left and right and upper and lower. And when you go upper and lower, you can click here and there's even more information on upper and more information on lower and more information left and obviously more information right. There's new information about the clusters, right, and what they mean and how they share and so on. There's the dashboard, how I see myself, which is the work element, sorry, the key descriptors. And then at work, which is the work elements. There's information on energy levels and so forth. Whew, there is honestly so much information here. It is really terrific. These are some extra tabs. And this is available now, obviously, to the thinker, because once you've debriefed an HBDI digitally, the thinker gets ongoing access to the thinker portal, so they can come here every time. It's like them going back to their paper pack. And so they can use it for communicating, problem solving, you know, or decision making. And if they have any questions, they can ask the questions. Is there an ideal profile, mood, etc.? And if they want to print the traditional 2 pages, then they can do that. Okay? So there is a whole world in this thing called the Thinker Portal and HBDI Digital. And there's going to be, as I say, more to come. So let me go back. Where do I want to? PowerPoint.
Okay, we seem to have lost Michael in his presentation. So I think Chris is just working out. This is the bit that goes wrong. This is where it all goes wrong. Here, I think he's coming back. I think he might have to dial in again. So he was nearly finished going through HBDI Digital then. And I don't know if any of you have had a try now. Colin Boulder is just asking in the notes whether everyone who completes an HBDI profile gets access. And yes, they do. In fact, as soon as they finish the HBDI survey and submit it, they then get a system-generated email from Herman saying, congratulations, here's the link. But their profile part will be misted with a padlock until you give them the unlock code that you have decided on for the group, or their preference code if it's an individual. Michael's back.
Yep. Okay, I don't know how long I went for, so it just dropped out. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm assuming then that yeah, Linda was able to fill the gap and carry on. Okay, one question we often get is, obviously you can now see how HBDI Digital, you know, compares to the booklet. The last thing I want to leave you with is, how does HBDI Digital, you know, compare to the app? All right, because there are some similarities, but there are also, say, some differences. It is a challenge, but you can actually run a session, you know, I guess, with some people with paper, some with digital, and some with the app. It's just that all be looking, you know, at something different. I think, Linda, you were saying we've actually got somebody who was trying to do that the other day, and it turned out to be quite difficult. But theoretically, you know, you could do it. I've certainly used the app to debrief people one-on-one, because, you know, it's so convenient and it's really good. I guess the real difference is that the digital, and as I say, when we build on the Thinker portal, it's a bigger place to go, and there are going to be other resources, right? Whereas the app is on the phone, which we know you have in your pocket. So this is on the go. And if you've got a client, you know, where they have workers and thinkers who don't have a desk, then this is obviously, you know, the one to use. Now, the other big thing, though, about the app is, as you know, when I'm just logging onto the app, is the app has 3 buttons down the bottom. It has understand your profile, and you know, if you press that, up comes your profile, and the person can review their profile, look at it, or, you know, show it to other people. The other feature, though, that it has is the second button, which is called the guesstimate. And this is what the app has, which I guess HBDI Digital doesn't. And the guesstimate allows you to guess other people's profiles. And we've got a lot of clients who are beginning to use the guesstimate. You know, we got one, for instance, in the financial advice area, is when they're going to meet a client, they think, well, I'm going to go and meet Mr. and Mrs. Robinson. I wonder what their thinking preference is. And they can use the guesstimate part to say, what do I know about Mr. and Mrs. Robinson? Well, Mr. does this, Mrs. does this, and the app will then create a profile for Mr. Robinson. And the app will then compare the profile of Mr. Robinson with their profile. And so it allows them to get ready for the meeting. Now, you might not be able to see, but what I've done with my guesstimate is I've created 4 dummy profiles. I've created Blue Sky, Green Grocer, Red Rooster, and Yellow Pages. So if I click on Green Grocer, right, up comes a typical profile, right, for somebody, you know, with a strong green profile. What I can then do is it'll then compare my Green Grocer on the top with me at the bottom. So I can look at it and go, heavens, right? And it will then give me some tips on what I should do when I approach Green Grocer. So really, really good. And even for me, who's been around this stuff that long, sometimes I need a reminder, right? So that's where I see the difference, right? So I don't see, I'll use digital as opposed to the app. I use both, right? Because this is in your hand, your back pocket. As I used to say, you know, you can take this to the bar when you're meeting somebody, but obviously you can't go to the bar at the moment, but there will be a day when you can go back to the bar. So take the app. The rest of the time, say digital is really designed for virtual instructor led training, virtual one-on-one coaching, virtual debriefing, and empowering the thinker with all the information that was in here, but obviously now in a digital, digital way. Okay, I know we've gone a bit over time, but I do want to finish on one thing, and it's all about Christmas, I guess, and it's all about the aha and unwrapping the present. And I know Linda's already asked the question. It's all about, do I let the thinker see their profile before I run a virtual session or not? You know, it's a bit like Christmas. So it's a bit like, you know, do I let them open their present before Christmas or not? Now, what I love about the HBDI is when people open their profile and they go, wow, oh, that explains it, or whatever it is, right? And we don't want to lose that magic. I don't think you do lose the magic if you let the people see their HBDO profiles before. It shifts the learning a bit, but it does not destroy the magic. All right? I've run sessions both ways now, and I actually quite like running virtual sessions with digital when they've already had a look at their profiles, because now they know enough to be dangerous. They know enough to have a lot of questions, and it shifts the aha from, oh, wow, isn't that good, to, oh my God, I now see how I can start using this. It shifts it more to application. And that's the discussion I believe we need to have, and need to have more. Let the technology and digital perhaps explain the numbers. We then can get into the application and the insights. So it just shifts it a little bit differently, right? But as Linda said, the technology will still allow you to lock it up until you run the session. It'll allow you to release it early, right, if you choose to. I ran a session when digital first came out with, there were 12, I think, managers from around Asia. And they came together. Actually, they came together in the same room. So it was kind of virtual, face-to-face, real digital delivery, right? So it was a mixture of everything. But I gave them access to it, all of them before, so that they could arrive knowing their profiles. And I did it that way because they were 12 people from different cultures, different language. You know, there was going to be challenges anyway. So I wanted them to do the knowledge bit in their own time, you know, beforehand. So that, it still is a big question. And again, there's no one answer, but give it a lot of thought, because you can actually be really creative in the way you sequence it, you know, and what you do. Okay, yeah, way over time. Thank you, everybody. Linda, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to thank everyone who's still here, and just to remind you that we will be sending an email, and in that email there'll be information on how to join Michael's sessions that are every Wednesday. There'll be information on joining Brett's webinar that is scheduled for next Thursday at 10 o'clock, and also details for how you can lock into a smaller session, smaller amount of people, where we will take you for a more detailed digital HBDI walkthrough, and show you where to find the exact resources that you need to deliver virtually, and some of the other things that we've got up our sleeves. For instance, we have a digital, well, it's a PowerPoint, but it's a bingo game that can kind of take the place of a diversity card session or a balloon session. So there's things that we'll show you in that session, and you'll be able to click into them. Anyone from any of these regions will be able to. And I want Lisa to say personally a close as well. So see you all later. And here's Lisa just to also close for New Zealand peeps.
Hi everybody. Following Linda, hope everybody enjoyed the session. If you've got any questions for us that we haven't answered, send them through and we can come back to you and answer them all. We look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Thank you so much, Michael. Fantastic session, and thank you everyone.